Hi, welcome to the Dream Team web series. I am excited to introduce Jenny Blake, who is here to speak with us today. I totally have the hugest crush on her, and I'm so glad she agreed to do this. She is an author, career and business strategist, and international speaker, but also the host of the Pivot podcast, which I listen to religiously. So thank you for being part of this masterclass and serving this community of entrepreneurs who have a great desire to be successful. Hi, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Hi, Natasha. I feel the same about you. Even though we just met, I'm really grateful, and it's just awesome to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yay. So before we get into it, I was wondering if you could just share something about yourself that you would want the audience to know.
Well, you mentioned my podcast, which is a thing that I love doing the most. And before we hit record, I was telling you that I feel incredibly awkward with almost every interview. And so if those of you watching and you're starting in your business, or you want to start something like a podcast or a book, know that feeling good at it is not a prerequisite. That I now take my awkwardness as a good sign that I must be interviewing the right people, or it must be picking subjects that are just a little bigger than I am, where it's kind of hard for me to tackle them. And although sometimes I cringe when I'm listening back, I know that the most important thing is hit publish and keep going. And so it's very affirming. Thank you, Natasha, for being one of those people who's there listening, even through all the imperfections.
Oh no, that's everything great in life, right? It's just all the it's when you know that you're really doing something right, when you're just outside of your comfort level and your comfort zone, and you're just growing. And I just love that. So now we'll just get into it. I just know when I speak with a lot of entrepreneurs, they have this sense of control that they want to have over everything. They think they're the superhero. They want to just do everything and take control of. But what they don't realize is that it really hinders their business, their growth, their ability to succeed, because they're doing tasks that aren't making them money. And so I know that you are, for me, that expert on delegating, and I was wondering what you could share in regards to why is it so hard to delegate? What are the barriers that get in the way?
There are a couple barriers. In the beginning of self-employment, it can feel like, first of all, you have no money to delegate. So sometimes money is a barrier, but you hit on an even bigger one, which is the notion of control and of feeling like, well, no one can do it better as well as I can. Or even if I don't like doing this thing, who would I delegate to? And what I found, the reason for this journey, by the way, I'm number one perfectionist and chief control officer. I've had to learn this lesson of control and surrender so many times across multiple areas of my life, whether career or business or relationships. And when I launched my first book, it's called Life After College, in 2011, and all was going well. I had just quit Google. I was riding the adrenaline of quitting my job. I'd been there 5 years, and I was determined not to fail. And I kind of launched a bunch of stuff. And then about a year and a half in, I was exhausted. And not only physically kind of tired, but creatively out. I just was not wanting to talk about life after college anymore, but I didn't yet have my next direction. And so when I needed to take a break in my business and step back and recharge and have more time for creative inspiration, everything ground to a halt. If I wasn't in it, if I couldn't be present, there was no one to do the speaking, there was no one to do the coaching, and I didn't have that many products or things that would sell without me making it happen. And that's when I realized that this isn't a sustainable business. Yes, I took step one of creating freedom for myself, and that was priceless. But phase two is that as I look ahead at my life, I don't want to feel this chokehold that what if I get in a car accident? What if something happens, I get sick, or I just want to take a break? How will my business continue without me? And I realized that I was the bottleneck. So then for the next 3 to 4 years, I set out on this journey of creating systems and more scalable offerings so that by the time my second book, Pivot, came out in 2016, I knew that, yes, I was still the one in charge. I'm a solopreneur. I don't have any full-time employees, but I started delegating 3 times, 4 times as much. I had more scalable products and solutions in my business, and I was working 10 to 20 hour weeks and yet earning 4 to 5 times what I had ever earned. And that to me was the proof of success, that I could work less, be healthier, and still not have the limiting belief that by me working less or delegating more, I was going to limit my income, but it's actually the opposite.
Yes. So you hit on a lot of like things that are benefits. And I think when it comes to delegating, it is a way of like working smarter. So you're not working as hard. What would you say were the tools that allowed you to do that, to freely kind of allow yourself to delegate? And I know that like you hit on a really sensitive topic when it comes to someone starting a business. It's limited income, limited money to spend on hiring people. Think, what tools, resources are you using, or would you recommend?
Well, I started delegating when I was almost at rock bottom in my business. So although money can be a concern, it doesn't have to be. My first VA was $200 a month. And there were so many other things that I could and did cut out of my life and my business expenses to make that possible. So I was willing to not eat out at a restaurant a single time that month if it meant paying for the VA, because she was actually crucial in taking over some personal tasks that freed me up for my business, like helping me move, helping me call phone companies, just stupid stuff that nobody wants to waste their time on. So that's one of the places I recommend starting. I created a whole course called Delegation Ninja, and a lot of these resources are in there just in case anyone wants more. But so I have templates for some of this, but you can start by just observing in a period of 2 weeks, what would you want to delegate? If money weren't an object, if you knew exactly and you had a great person, what would you delegate? And that's often the first barrier, is that people think, well, I just don't know what I would delegate to someone, and they haven't given it that critical thought. But if you can observe over 2 to 3 weeks and write down very specific tasks, you'll be at a better jumping off point to experiment. So much of this is about starting small and experimenting. You don't have to go from 0 to having a full-time employee overnight. It's not necessary. Even people you think have these giant businesses, some of them do have 6, 7 employees, but others of us don't even want that. So there's a lot you can delegate that in the range of $100 a month, and you'd be amazed. I delegate my laundry. Like we have a service in New York where they'll come pick it up and drop it off for free. I get those boxed meals where like Sunbasket, HelloFresh, Blue Apron. I use Plated now. I did a whole experiment. Even that helps me delegate figuring out what to cook and going grocery shopping. So there are ways you can do this that go far beyond business, but will free you up to do your most creative work.
I love that. I love how you added the personal aspect, because I think people always take that off when they're looking at the grand scheme of their lives. They're like, oh, laundry and food and grocery shopping, and they're not looking to see that that's actually taking time out of their day as well. So having a VA or even a college intern come and do those things and help is like a great idea, and it really helps to help with them like focus on what's important in regards to like growing their business.
Totally. And by the way, my communications director, Marisol, started as an intern. She had been reading my blog for a couple years, and I said, okay, she was still in college. So we did a semester-long internship. She did such a great job that I started paying her, did such a great job that I increased her paying. And then by the time she was graduating, I'd referred her to so many friends that she was doing this full time, not just for me, but with other clients as well. So it can start that small. Like, again, you don't have to commit even to your VA for the long haul. You're not marrying this person. You could start with one project and see how it goes, or start with 1 month and see how it goes. But know that there is some ramp up time with delegation, where in the beginning, it is a little more work. It takes time to figure out how to craft a task and review the work and make sure. And usually if it doesn't get done in a way you like, it's on you. It just means that you need to be more specific and clear about how you assign it.
And I was just about to touch up on that. Like, how do you feel someone can be effective in delegating? Because I feel like that's really difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs, because I don't even think they're clear on what they are actually doing, because it's hard to communicate what you do on a day-to-day basis and what you understand so clearly to someone else.
You nailed it, Natasha. Totally. So I think the first step is all right, what's a task that you don't feel is your zone of genius? It's not your best work. And you know you want to delegate. So start with something easy and then envision, what does success look like? When you get this back, how will you know that the person did a great job on the task? And really think that through. How is it going to be delivered? In a Google Doc, in a spreadsheet? Is it research-based? Is it writing-based? And so I find to delegate effectively, it's helpful to have a clear deadline, have a clear definition of the output, how you want to receive the assignment, whatever it is, how you'll both know when it's done, and then being clear also about how much time that you want it to take. So instead of just saying, hey, do some research on books, and then the person comes back and they spent 10 hours and now have charged you with so much money, say, spend 1 hour and go from there. Sorry. Had to turn off Alexa. See me doing her timer to Alexa. She's probably going to talk right now.
Mine is actually like has the blue ring now. It's like
I know. Did you know there was a South Park episode where they started saying Alexa, and you know that in everyone's homes they were probably lighting up all over. It was even done as a joke. So maybe we're making other people's devices light up as we speak.
That's so funny.
And even that, I can say, even that is an example of, I love that you have one too, but what are just little things to create efficiency around the house and in your work? Anytime there's this agile development quote I love, anytime you repeat a task, take one step toward automating it. Mm-hmm. So one thing I'll do is the minute something even runs out around the house, I just put it on my Amazon cart, even if I don't buy it in that moment. But that way I'm not having to remember. The key is to try to have to remember less and have more systems. And the same can be true for tasks in your business. What are you doing on a recurring basis? Something as simple as having Text Expander. This is software that I use for the Mac, where you can make little shortcuts that anytime someone asks for my address, I just type in this shortcut, ;A or APT for apartment, and it populates my address. These little things add up. Yeah, it's really cool software. And you can go as complex as whole canned responses. Like when someone inquires about this, there could be multiple paragraphs that expand just from a little one-word phrase that you type into your keyboard.
Oh my God, that's super efficient. I love that.
Yeah, and the pro tip to do that I learned is make your shortcuts start with a semicolon and then no space. So semicolon interview. And that might give someone my Skype handle and my bio. That way, because you're never typing a semicolon with no space in your regular day-to-day work. Otherwise, if you just made the shortcut like something like hi, and it was meant to populate a canned response, you might accidentally put that text without realizing.
Yeah, definitely don't want that.
Yeah.
So do you feel like there's a difference between using an actual person to delegate to and like face-to-face communication versus virtual or using a technology?
I find it generally is helpful to have the same person. So rather than trying to always find new people, let's say on Fiverr or TaskRabbit, I do feel that it's helpful to have someone, even if they're only working. By the way, you can get a ton done with 10 hours a month. That alone, you'd be amazed at how much someone who's not frittering time away can accomplish. But that's helpful to build rapport, build understanding, build systems together. And then usually I'll use those other services on a one-off basis or if I need something more specialized. So I think it's helpful to try and have, but certainly it doesn't have to be in person. I have a VA team and then a communications director that I mentioned, and we both use Asana for task management and communication. So we're not even assigning and sending tasks back and forth through the phone, let alone in person. It's all happening through Asana, which has worked really well for us.
Yeah. So all these project management tools, like how do you effectively make sure is that like how you manage your whole virtual team and how efficient is that? And just elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I love it. We tried so many tools to try to get to something that really worked. And I have to credit Mandy. She runs a business called She Can Coterie. And that's the team, the VA team. And they really got me onto Asana. And it is helpful because I have a dashboard where I can see all the outstanding tasks. And then whenever someone from her team makes progress, they can write a comment, they can assign tasks back to me for review. And then once I think that it looks good, I'll mark it complete. And in doing this, we always see what's assigned. Sometimes before I was using this kind of software, I felt like I would delegate things and then forget to check in on them or forget what was still outstanding. And it just felt kind of like a black box, a little confusing. And this way I can always log in and say, okay, what's what? Or I can reprioritize, I can mark a due date. And it's been super helpful. I actually can't imagine delegating on an ongoing basis without it.
And it also, just hearing you talk about it, it feels like that's how you gain some of that control back. I guess what you're letting go, because you're able to just kind of supervise on a higher level than trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of this thing, it's true. You do have to let go of the control, even knowing that in some cases the work won't get done the same way you would do it. But the time that it frees up is necessary for you to either do more strategic things in the business or have some space. I don't think that delegating should just come at the 11th hour when you're already stressed out and you absolutely have to do it. That might be when people start, first open the door into delegation. But ideally, by making a habit out of delegation, and it is a habit and it is a muscle that you build over time, you'll naturally have more space open up and you'll start to delegate even when you don't have to. Again, even knowing that the work might not come back 100% perfect, but if it's 80%, that's good enough. And that keeps you going.
Do you find sometimes, because I notice this, especially when I'm working with clients, do you find that sometimes the person that you're working with is kind of thinking more outside the box and kind of can give you ideas and like kind of like so with Asana, just do things differently that you would have never saw, and you're like, wow, I'm so glad I was able to bring this person on board because I would have never have thought of this.
That's ideal. I think when that happens, that's ideal. And I think it's a bonus that I've had certain teams where that is the case and they're innovating on things. And then other times where it's just not happening. And so sometimes if it's not happening, I'll give the instruction, take this and run with it. Use your best judgment, or feel free to be proactive. Take a guess. We might get some things wrong, but go ahead and assume it's okay to be a little more aggressive in this area of answering questions before I even have to answer them. So sometimes I will give that encouragement, but it's a dream if you have someone who's bringing new ideas and new twists to things.
Well, let's let the dream live. Let's let the dream live. Okay. Well, I have one final question. It's usually what I ask everyone towards the end, and it's, what would be your number one advice to every entrepreneur building a business to execute their vision?
Such a great question. One, get really clear on what the vision is. I have a worksheet. It's free. It's on my website. If you go to pivotmethod.com/ideal day, I created this Mad Lib where you can fill in what your ideal day looks like. And I would do this for your business because sometimes we think we have a vision, but it's still fuzzy. And by getting that clearer and even having a vision for delegation, if you had the perfect team in place at the perfect budget, what would be happening? What of your time would be freed up? What tasks would you be delegating? What would you be doing with this extra time? How would you feel? So always starting from the vision will then help motivate you to then take those steps of finding the person and giving those initial assignments. And so the second thing I'm going to cheat and give too, is start with a small experiment. And of course, give some leeway that with one experiment, it's not going to be the full picture of delegation. Don't give up too easily if it doesn't go perfectly, but give yourself the permission to start small. And before you worry about just some huge mega commitment, pick one thing on your plate that you really don't want to do or have been procrastinating on. And of course, sometimes it means you can drop it altogether. But if it's not, if it's something that's important to you or some aspect of something you care about, delegate that one piece and see how it goes.
Yes, that's amazing. I think that's that's just like such great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I would like to invite everyone to start listening to the Pivot podcast like today.
Thank you, Natasha.
It's so informative and relevant. So get on it, start listening to it. It's available on iTunes and Google Play, and also on other platforms. For more information, visit thepivotmethod.com. You are the one who is creating your own vision to be successful. So why not start today and do that? So thank you, Jenny, for joining us today. And I really enjoyed interviewing and talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you, Natasha. I loved all your questions, and big thanks to everyone who's here listening.
All right.
Bye.